put the team on my back. I do it all for the family. Everyone think they can rap. Nobody ever. All
right, folks, this is Shy Harris of the Rebel Society. Back for another episode of The Process. Kind of stepped up my production value a little bit on this one. Got the lights that I borrowed from my boy Joe Walters. Shout out to Joe. I'll be bringing these back to you right after this. But today, I want to talk briefly about podcasts. I have a podcast called Society X. I almost forgot it for a second. Where I talk with a lot of dope individuals about their story, about random topics. We have a little fun with it. So it's the perfect conversation for people in their late 20s, early 30s that's just trying to have these conversations that most people don't have. So I started that about actually the beginning of this year, and it's been flourishing. Some months, some episodes do real good, some episodes not so good. So as most people know that know me and know my story, they'll know that I'm not in this to be some big media personality or vlogger or blogger or podcast or anything like that. I'm using it to test different methods that work as far as promotion and marketing. So, as you know, I have the Rebel Society, digital media marketing agency. Like I said, I'm just testing different marketing techniques that work in podcasts. So when it comes time for me to work with certain podcasts, I know what works and what doesn't work. So these are a couple tips that I found that actually work when it comes to getting more views, more listens on your podcast. Number one is make sure you have a lot of energy in your podcast. People have to hear this. I actually just listened to a podcast last night that had the person that was moderating or the host of it has very low energy. I'm not the most high energy person ever, so that's kind of hard for me. So I try to be very mindful of that. Number two would have to be, all right, as far as strategy, we just thinking about how people interact. You usually want to have your podcast on Facebook somehow, some way. Even if you had to do a 5-minute clip and just put that straight on Facebook, which has a good talking point. The reason I say Facebook is because nothing else allows you to do, shout out to Aries, nothing else is going to allow you to do a 5-minute clip. But also Facebook is a place for different conversations. So it could be something on like my last podcast, Aries. Can you stop, please? So yeah, my last podcast episode was with all guys and we talked about the slut walk. So none of us knew what a slut walk, so we was actually just trying to figure that out on the spot and try to give our thoughts on it. So that led to more conversations on Facebook where people actually were able to look at the clip, look at the full podcast or listen to the full podcast and see what we're talking about, add their 2 cents onto it. So you definitely want to have, some type of larger scale content on Facebook. Instagram does all right, but people can only see those quick 1-minute short clips, which works, and sometimes it doesn't work because you have to put the link in your bio, and a lot of people are just not going to click that. They're just going to go for the short, digestible 1-minute Instagram clip. All right, number three will have to be something that I've actually been trying and testing over the past couple episodes or weeks or months, and that would be to make sure when you start editing your short Instagram clips that you put one out maybe the night before you actually release your episode. Like I release mine on Monday morning. So I put out a short Instagram clip probably about 10 o'clock Sunday night so people can say, all right, well, this is coming up tomorrow morning, so make sure you click the link in the bio, something like that, so people are aware of what you got coming up next. And then I usually upload it at 12 midnight. So that way I'm not forgetting the people that are listening to podcasts on their way to work at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So as soon as they wake up, it's right there. So I've seen that I've usually got, 30, 40, 50, listens just from the time that I upload it to the time I wake up in the next morning. So that's definitely a good idea for anybody who's has, a podcast going on. Number four, since my podcast has regular everyday people on it, you don't want to have those same people on the podcast too many times. Unless you have a person as a co-host, you don't want to keep bringing or having like the same type of podcast episode. Like with me, I like talking about relationships and business, but mostly it's relationships that I talk about on my podcast. So having those same people on a podcast to talk about it gets very redundant and monotonous. So you want to keep having new people that you bring on. So, like, I've brought people on my podcast that's been on podcasts 3, 4, 5 times, and I've only had the podcast since the beginning of the year. So that's something that I'm working on as well, just making sure that you spread out the time that those people are up there. So when it's something that they actually have to say, they can come up there and it's going to be something fresh and new. And you don't want them to feel like they have to keep promoting your project or your work or what have you. And on top of that too, if you have new people up there, they're going to want to be up there to talk about whatever they got going on. Then they're going to be excited about promoting it. And then it's just going to get more followers and views and you get more fresh ears on your podcast. So those are my thoughts and ideas on podcasts. Like I said, I've been going through it for the past couple of months. I've been also helping different people out with their podcasts. Also, side note too, this part should go without saying, but make sure your stuff has a visual component with it. Like you need to have like photos, videos, quote cards, something like that. Like just be. We live in a visual society, so make sure you have a visual piece that goes along with it. Before I wrap this up, shout out to On Air Network, Treasy and Leezy. They're not like a couple or anything like that. They just made up 2 names that just happen to rhyme. So shout them out in the On Air Network for all the dope podcasts that are going on. I'm going to put a link down below where you can go and check out all those podcasts, Live from the 7-5, by invite only, That's What I Want, Kind of Movie Critics, and me, Society X Podcast. So I know they got a lot more stuff going on, so make sure you follow along with them. But once again, like I said, you can find me everywhere, Shad Harris. I probably have that on the screen like right here somewhere. Yeah, right there. And then I might have a link to one of my podcasts up here in the corner just so you can check it out. But thank you for being a part of this conversation, and peace.
I do it all for the family. Everyone think they can rap. Nobody ever gonna challenge me.